So there is a lady named Lynn McTaggart. She's written several books. The one that I recently read is called The Field, and I really enjoyed her book. Talks again about quantum physics and about this type of intention experiment. And she actually has a website called The Intention Experiment. And earlier, I believe it was in September, I participated in this experiment that she did where she got thousands of people, and I apologize, I don't remember the number. It was in the 30 to 60 thousands of people all over the world to agree that every day for 1 week at the same time to log onto the computer, and that we meditated or concentrated on, and we're not trained yogic flyers, but we just had the intention of dropping the crime rate in Sri Lanka. Because right now, although it's not in the news, there's a horrible civil war going on there, and a lot of people are getting killed. A lot of refugees are fleeing and getting killed in between when they're leaving their homes trying to get to safety. So we did that for a week, and she's been releasing. It's taken a while to get all the science behind that, and they've noticed a drop in the violent crime there in Sri Lanka over the times that we meditated. So there's people like Lynn McTaggart who are organizing groups of people to come together, not people who have, spent years meditating, but people who, okay, all I have to do is hold this intention for 10 minutes and concentrate and see that drop. And it's affecting the world. We can actually make a change by what we hold inside of ourselves.
Wow. I mean, yeah, it's amazing. It's just amazing to me that we could change the world just by our thoughts. I mean, that's pretty big.
It is pretty big.
And intention, even just by intention. I believed it my whole life, but it's so fun that quantum physics and that scientists and that research is actually supporting all of this now.
It is, and there's a really cool... Again, the Dr. Quantum, it's called the double slit experiment. So Google Dr. Quantum entanglement, and it'll talk about what I said about the electron in LA and the electron in Paris and how they're affecting one another, which led us into this whole thing, like how your intention and your thought can actually affect something else. And the higher thought vibrates faster, so they believe that a higher, more positive intention has more of an effect than a negative intention. And where was I going with that? Oh,
and I'm just going to jump in there.
Yes.
Yeah, because one thing, talking about that entangling, one thing that they said in that, besides that everything is connected, like you're saying, and talked about the, all of that, but one thing they said that I thought was so fascinating was he said that space is just the construct that gives the illusion that there's separate objects.
Right.
I think that's so fascinating. That's another one of those concepts that's, if you think about it, it's pretty huge.
Yeah, that what we see is this, all of this out here, it's just a construct or an illusion to think that we're actually separate.
Separate from that, yeah. Takes that one mind to a whole new level, doesn't it?
It does. It takes that Jungian collective unconsciousness.
To a whole new level,
It sure does.
Excellent.
So one of the other clips, the double slit experiment that's talked about in quantum physics circles quite often and is mentioned in these books that I was talking about, is the thought of, or not the thought, but the actual experiment where quantum physicists took an electron gun. So again, electrons are tiny little bits of matter. And they noticed that when they shoot them through a plate, a metal plate that has one slit in it, on the back of the wall, you get a design that is one slit. Okay? So then they also took, two slits, okay? Two slits, and they fired the electron gun through two slits. They did not get a pattern of two slits on the back wall, but they actually got what's called a wave-like pattern, so many different slits on the back wall. And they said, wait a minute, how is that possible? Because when you fire matter, which is an electron like a marble, you get this one line, but when you fire it through two slits, instead of getting two lines, you get this wave-like pattern. Only like waves, really waves, like water would give you that pattern on the back wall. And what they found, long story short, is that an electron, short story short, not being that succinct, short story short, is that an electron can either be a particle, like a marble, or a wave, like water. So it is constantly changing between a piece of matter or a wave of energy. So they thought, well, why is it constantly changing? What's going on with this? When they actually had an observer or somebody watching which slit the electron was going to go through,
this is the best part,
it became a particle again, so no longer a wave. So while this may not make a lot of sense, again, watch the YouTube clip. what it means and what Niels Bohr actually said. Nothing is real unless it is observed. So the quantum physicists have taken the theoretical leap and have a lot of really higher math that I don't understand to show that everything exists in a state of possibility. Meaning that when we say anything is possible, quantum physics shows that it is. It's not until someone observes or there's an observer that something becomes locked into a state of being. So everything exists in this wave, like it could go here, it could go there, it could be this, it could be that, and then as soon as somebody observes it, it takes a one path. So many folks.
My mind's going crazy.
I know, mine is too. And I'm like, know about this stuff. I'm like, did I say that right? Yes, I said that right. So the act of observing or intention or looking at something is actually what sticks it into reality. Now, there's a lot of debate in the scientific community. Like, okay, so if something exists when it's observed, who's the observer? Who's observing us? Why do we all see this as a table and not some people see it as something else and this and that and the other? Read these books. Read these books that I've just talked about that can give you a lot more information on how that happens. I take this to mean, like, I don't get all the science behind it. I take that to mean that anything is absolutely possible in my life, that those waves of energy, that I have some sort of effect on it. So I'm going to be looking for the most positive outcome for myself in all of those things. Does that make sense? Or
Makes
am I
sense
just rambling?
to me. No,
okay.
It makes sense to me. You know, part of it, I get it, that part of it almost sounds like rambling, but, you know, when I stop and listen, it just really does make perfect sense, and you explained that really well. So A+. You know, it's funny because as you're saying this, I remember when I was a kid, and we would play, I would play. I was always in, you know, it was all about magic and stuff in the mind when I was a kid and walking through walls. I thought I could walk through walls and fly and levitate, and I still do. Nothing's really changed since I was a kid.
No, not much. You have a house now.
I have a big house, and I know I always say I feel like, you know, any day now, like mom and dad are going to come home or something, and I'm going to get busted for still being 12 years old. But it's the Peter Pan syndrome. And what was I going to say? Oh, yeah. When I was a kid, I used to always play games with people and tell them that what they were focusing on out in front of them was the only thing that actually existed, and that they could never prove that everything behind them just didn't turn to just like a wave, like just like just this funny little nothingness behind them. And of course kids would always try to turn around really fast and they'd say, yeah, but it's there. And I'm like, yeah, because now that you're looking there, that's what you're observing and focusing on. So of course
so you were doing this as a kid?
Yeah, I was
Mind games
a
as a
little
kid.
bit obsessed about this. And when I was a kid, even with the sky, I used to tell people that it was really purple. And we don't need to get into all that.
No,
I can tell you lots of stories.
This is fascinating, Rich.
Isn't that a trip? And I still, to this day, I always play with that a little bit and go, well, what really does happen if I'm not looking behind me at what's back there? How can anybody prove that it really does exist? It's kind of that this is what I'm observing, so this is what I see, you know? Ooh.
Yeah, so I have a clip that I wanted to introduce, and that was, you know, before I go there, I have to say, I am going to write a book that says Life with Mitch, that's called Life with Mitch, because, like, I've known you for quite a while, and you still throw out these stories that amaze me. That's one that amazes me. I haven't heard that one. You have so many stories.
There's lots of Mitch stories.
We could sell your story to Lifetime. Yeah, it would be a good one. Anyhow, moving on. There's a book out there called Messages from Water by a Japanese gentleman called Mr. Masura Emoto, who did these fascinating experiments on intent and water. And this clip mixes Mr. Emoto talking about how he did the experiment and some clips from the show What the Bleep. So it explains it much more succinctly than I can, and I feel like I've just been talking. So let's go to that clip.